She didn't stop replying because she's too busy. She stopped replying because your attention became too available. The moment a man starts chasing validation, he loses the mystery, the confidence, and the value that made her interested in the first place. The moment a woman starts becoming distant, most men immediately panic internally, even if they don't show it on the outside. Her replies become shorter, the energy changes, the excitement disappears, and suddenly the man who once felt confident starts questioning everything. He rereads old conversations, searching for clues. He checks when she was last online. He wonders whether another man has her attention now. And without realizing it, he slowly begins abandoning his self-respect in exchange for reassurance. This is where most men destroy attraction completely. Instead of stepping back and observing calmly, they increase pressure. They send longer messages, ask unnecessary questions, try harder to impress her, and become emotionally available in a desperate way. What they fail to understand is that attraction cannot survive pressure. The more a man chases someone who is emotionally unavailable, the more he communicates fear, insecurity, and emotional dependency. Women are deeply affected by emotional energy, and desperation is one of the fastest ways to make attraction disappear because desperation tells her that your entire emotional stability depends on her attention. A man who truly values himself does not collapse the moment someone becomes distant. He understands that people reveal themselves naturally over time. If someone wants to speak to you, they will make the effort. If someone values your presence, you will not constantly feel confused about where you stand. But many men become addicted to the emotional highs and lows of inconsistent attention. The unpredictability creates obsession. One day she is warm, the next day she is cold, and this emotional instability keeps him emotionally trapped because he starts chasing the version of her that existed in the beginning. He keeps thinking that if he says the perfect thing or gives enough attention, she will return to how she was before. But attraction does not work like negotiation. You cannot convince someone to value you through excessive effort. In fact, over-pursuing often creates emotional exhaustion because it removes mystery, confidence, and emotional balance from the interaction. The strongest thing a man can do when a woman pulls away is remain emotionally centered, not cold, not manipulative, not angry, just calm. There is power in observing without reacting impulsively. When a man instantly panics, he exposes that he was emotionally dependent on the connection for validation. But when he remains composed, he communicates strength without saying a single word. Most men think attraction is built through constant attention, but attraction is often maintained through emotional discipline. A man who has purpose, standards, and self-control does not beg for consistency. He notices patterns and adjusts accordingly. He does not force conversations that feel one-sided. He does not chase clarification from someone who continuously creates confusion. He understands that real interest never feels like emotional begging. What makes this difficult is that silence triggers insecurity in people who are not emotionally grounded. Being ignored forces a man to confront his fears of rejection, abandonment, and inadequacy. And instead of facing those emotions internally, many men try to escape them by chasing harder externally. They believe more effort will remove the discomfort. But emotional control is developed when you stop reacting to temporary emotions and start respecting yourself enough to walk with dignity, even when you do not get the attention you hoped for. One of the most dangerous things a man can do is tie his self-worth to the attention of a woman. The moment his confidence rises when she texts and collapses when she becomes distant, he has unknowingly handed over emotional control of his life. This is why so many men lose themselves in modern relationships. They become emotionally dependent on validation without realizing it. A single reply can make their entire day feel meaningful, while being ignored for a few hours creates anxiety, insecurity, and overthinking. This emotional instability does not come from love. It comes from a lack of inner confidence and purpose. Many men believe they are deeply attached to the woman, but in reality, they are attached to how she makes them feel about themselves. Her attention becomes proof that they are desirable, valuable, or important. And once that attention disappears, they begin questioning their identity instead of simply accepting that people's feelings and behaviors change. A man with genuine self-worth does not see rejection as evidence that he is unworthy. He understands that attraction is subjective, timing matters, compatibility matters, and not every connection is supposed to last forever. But insecure men personalize everything. If a woman pulls away, they immediately assume they are not attractive enough, successful enough, interesting enough, or masculine enough. This mindset slowly destroys confidence because they begin living emotionally at the mercy of external approval. Their happiness becomes unstable because it depends on whether someone else chooses them in a particular moment. And the more emotionally dependent a man becomes, the more pressure he places on the relationship itself. He starts needing reassurance constantly. He overanalyzes behavior. He becomes fearful of losing her attention because deep down he believes losing her means losing his value. This is why emotionally strong men build lives that exist beyond relationships. They develop ambition, discipline, goals, and self-respect independent of romantic validation. A woman becomes an addition to their life, not the foundation of it. When a man lacks direction, he often becomes obsessed with relationships because he has nothing else emotionally fulfilling him. He gives one woman the role of providing excitement, purpose, confidence, and emotional security all at once, which creates unhealthy attachment. But a man who is focused on growth does not emotionally collapse over temporary distance because his identity is not built around one person's attention. He still has his mission, his standards, his routine, and his sense of self. This naturally makes him more attractive because emotionally grounded people do not cling to others for stability. What many men fail to understand is that confidence is not built by being constantly desired. Confidence is built by knowing your value even when someone fails to see it. Anyone can feel secure when they are receiving attention, compliments, and affection. Real confidence appears when attention disappears and you still remain emotionally balanced. The ability to maintain peace without external validation is rare because most people secretly rely on others to feel important. That is why rejection hurts so deeply for some men. It forces them to confront the emptiness they were trying to avoid through attention and connection. Instead of improving themselves internally, they search endlessly for someone to temporarily silence their insecurities. A man who truly respects himself never begs for attention because he understands that his worth does not decrease simply because someone failed to recognize it. He does not chase people who repeatedly make him feel emotionally uncertain. He does not sacrifice dignity for temporary validation. He values mutual effort, emotional consistency, and genuine interest because he understands that healthy relationships are built through reciprocity, not emotional dependency. Anyone can appear confident, calm, and emotionally stable when everything is going well. It is easy to feel secure when the conversations are exciting, the attention is consistent, and the affection is mutual. But emotional maturity is not revealed during moments of comfort. It is revealed during moments of uncertainty, distance, and silence. The moment a woman starts becoming less available, many men completely lose emotional control without even realizing it. Their behavior changes instantly. They become impatient, reactive, and emotionally impulsive. Instead of maintaining composure, they allow fear to control their actions. They start sending unnecessary messages just to get reassurance. They become obsessed with getting a response. They stalk social media, overanalyze every interaction, and create emotional scenarios in their mind that may not even be true. What begins as silence from another person slowly turns into chaos within themselves. This reaction exposes something important. Most people are not afraid of silence itself. They are afraid of what silence makes them feel about themselves. Emotionally immature men cannot tolerate uncertainty because they depend heavily on external attention for emotional stability. The moment communication changes, they immediately seek control. Some become needy and cling harder. Others become passive-aggressive, cold, or manipulative in an attempt to regain power. They post things online hoping to trigger jealousy. They intentionally ignore messages to create confusion. They try to make the woman feel guilty for pulling away instead of respecting the distance and responding with maturity. These behaviors reveal emotional weakness because they are driven by ego, insecurity, and emotional dependency rather than confidence. A man who lacks emotional control will always react impulsively because he cannot separate temporary emotions from intelligent behavior. Silence has a powerful way of exposing what is happening inside someone's mind. If a man instantly becomes angry, anxious, desperate, or emotionally unstable when ignored, it often means he has not developed emotional discipline within himself. Emotionally mature men understand that not every uncomfortable feeling needs an immediate reaction. They know how to pause, observe, and remain grounded instead of allowing temporary emotions to dictate their behavior. This does not mean they suppress emotions or pretend not to care. It means they have enough self-awareness to avoid embarrassing emotional reactions that damage both their dignity and the connection itself. Self-control is one of the rarest qualities today because most people act based on emotional impulse instead of emotional intelligence. There is something deeply attractive about a person who remains calm under emotional pressure, not because they are pretending to be unaffected, but because they possess internal stability. A man who can handle distance without panicking communicates confidence naturally. He does not need to force attention or demand reassurance because his identity is not threatened by temporary silence. He understands that people's behavior often reflects their own emotions, circumstances, and priorities. Instead of immediately taking everything personally, he observes patterns with clarity. This emotional balance creates respect because emotionally stable people feel safe, grounded, and mature in relationships. Many men believe strength is about dominance, aggression, or emotional coldness, but true emotional strength is the ability to remain composed when emotions are pulling you toward impulsive behavior. It is easy to send emotional paragraphs when you feel ignored. It is easy to react with anger when your ego feels rejected. It is easy to seek revenge through manipulation or attention-seeking behavior. What is difficult is maintaining dignity while processing uncomfortable emotions privately. Emotional maturity requires patience, self-awareness, and the ability to tolerate uncertainty without collapsing into emotional chaos. Silence often becomes the moment where a person either reveals emotional wisdom or exposes deep insecurity through their reactions, behavior, and inability to remain centered under pressure. One of the biggest mistakes men make in modern relationships is confusing temporary attention with genuine interest. Just because a woman talks to you sometimes, replies occasionally, or gives you moments of affection does not automatically mean she deeply values you. Many men become emotionally attached to inconsistency because they focus more on the moments when she gives attention than the long periods when she emotionally disappears. They hold on to small signs of interest and ignore the larger pattern of emotional unavailability. This creates confusion because they begin building emotional fantasies around someone who may only see them as temporary entertainment, emotional comfort, or convenient attention. The painful truth is that some people enjoy being desired more than they enjoy genuinely connecting. They like the validation, the compliments, the emotional support, and the attention without necessarily wanting the responsibility of real emotional investment. A woman who sees you as convenience will usually communicate only when it benefits her emotionally. She may return when she feels lonely, bored, hurt, or in need of validation. During these moments, her attention can feel intense, exciting, and emotionally convincing. She may suddenly become affectionate, responsive, and emotionally available, which gives a man hope that the connection is becoming serious. But the pattern always repeats itself. Once her emotional need is temporarily satisfied, the energy changes again. Replies become slower, conversations become dry, and the emotional effort disappears. This cycle keeps many men emotionally trapped because they become addicted to the unpredictable rewards of inconsistent attention. Human psychology naturally becomes attached to uncertainty because occasional affection creates emotional highs that feel powerful. The man keeps chasing those highs, believing that if he just tries harder, remains patient longer, or proves himself enough, consistency will eventually come. What makes this even more dangerous is that many men ignore obvious signs because they are emotionally invested in potential rather than reality. They focus on who she could become instead of accepting who she consistently shows herself to be. They excuse behavior repeatedly because they fear losing the connection entirely. They tell themselves she is just busy, confused, emotionally unavailable, or going through something difficult. While compassion is important, emotionally intelligent men also understand the importance of patterns. Genuine interest creates consistency naturally. A person who truly values you does not leave you constantly questioning where you stand. They make effort willingly. They create clarity instead of confusion. They communicate because they want to, not only when it is emotionally convenient for them. Men who lack self-worth often tolerate emotional inconsistency because they are afraid that demanding consistency will push the woman away. So instead of maintaining standards, they settle for fragments of attention and convince themselves it is enough. Over time, this damages their confidence because they are constantly adjusting their emotional needs to keep someone around. They accept breadcrumbs while secretly desiring commitment, reassurance, and emotional stability. But whenever a man accepts less than what he truly wants, resentment eventually grows inside him because deep down he knows the connection lacks balance. Healthy relationships are not built on confusion, emotional guessing games, or one-sided effort. Mutual interest naturally creates mutual investment. A strong man pays attention to actions more than temporary words or emotional moments. He understands that consistency reveals true intentions better than occasional affection ever could. Anyone can provide attention when lonely or emotionally empty, but genuine interest remains present even when life becomes busy or complicated. Emotionally mature men stop romanticizing inconsistent behavior because they understand that confusion itself is often the answer. When someone truly values your presence, you do not constantly feel emotionally uncertain, disposable, or emotionally starved for basic effort and communication. When a woman starts becoming distant, most men immediately make themselves more available. They text faster, respond instantly, clear their schedules, and emotionally position themselves around her attention. They believe that increasing access will somehow increase attraction. But in reality, constantly making yourself available when someone is pulling away often communicates emotional desperation rather than confidence. It sends the message that your life revolves around maintaining her attention. This is why many men unintentionally lose respect in relationships. Instead of focusing on improving themselves, they become consumed by trying to regain validation from one person. Their thoughts become dominated by the connection. Their mood depends on replies. Their confidence depends on reassurance. And slowly, without realizing it, they stop growing as individuals because all their energy is directed toward emotional chasing instead of personal development. Strong men respond differently to rejection, distance, or emotional uncertainty. Instead of obsessing over someone else's behavior, they redirect focus toward building themselves. They understand that the most powerful response to being ignored is not emotional reaction. It is self-improvement. While emotionally weak men waste hours overthinking messages, emotionally disciplined men invest those same hours into their body, mindset, finances, health, skills, and purpose. This shift in focus changes everything because confidence cannot be faked for long. Real confidence is built through action, discipline, and personal progress. A man who is consistently improving himself naturally becomes more attractive because his energy changes completely. He stops radiating emotional neediness and starts radiating direction, purpose, and self-respect. One of the biggest reasons people become emotionally obsessed with relationships is because they lack fulfillment in other areas of life. When a man has no purpose, no goals, and no meaningful direction, romantic attention becomes his primary source of excitement and validation. This creates unhealthy attachment because he starts treating the relationship as the center of his existence. Every interaction feels emotionally overwhelming because he has attached too much importance to it. But a man with ambition and discipline experiences relationships differently. He values connection, but he does not abandon himself for it. He still wakes up focused on his goals. He still maintains standards for his health, routine, and personal growth. He does not emotionally collapse simply because someone becomes distant, because his identity is built on more than external attention. Many men fail to realize that attraction is deeply connected to how a person feels about themselves. When a man neglects his physical health, lacks ambition, avoids discipline, and constantly seeks validation, insecurity naturally grows within him. That insecurity eventually appears in his behavior through jealousy, neediness, emotional dependence, and fear of rejection. But when a man consistently works on himself, he develops quiet confidence naturally. Going to the gym strengthens not only the body, but also discipline and self-respect. Building financial stability creates independence and security. Developing emotional intelligence creates calmness under pressure. Pursuing goals creates purpose. All these things transform the way a man carries himself. He no longer seeks attention from a place of emptiness because he is actively building a life he respects. Ironically, the moment a man stops obsessing over one woman and starts investing deeply into himself, people often become more attracted to him, not because he is pretending not to care, but because his energy is no longer rooted in emotional dependency. There is something naturally magnetic about people who are focused, disciplined, and emotionally grounded. They do not chase excessively because they know their value is increasing through their actions every single day. Instead of wasting emotional energy trying to force someone to recognize their worth, they become the type of person whose presence speaks for itself through confidence, standards, growth, and purpose-driven behavior. One of the hardest things for many men to accept is that not every connection is meant to continue. Sometimes a woman loses interest, sometimes feelings change, sometimes the effort becomes one-sided. And instead of accepting this reality with maturity, many men begin fighting desperately to hold on to something that is already emotionally fading. They believe persistence will change the outcome. They think if they love harder, text more, explain themselves better, or remain endlessly patient, the connection will eventually return to what it once was. But the painful truth is that chasing someone who consistently ignores you often destroys your dignity long before it restores the relationship. A man who refuses to walk away from disrespect, inconsistency, or emotional neglect slowly teaches people that he is willing to tolerate anything just to avoid being alone. Many men stay in emotionally draining situations because they fear rejection more than they value self-respect. They would rather remain emotionally confused than face the temporary pain of letting go. This fear causes them to accept behavior they would never advise another person to tolerate. They continue initiating conversations with someone who rarely reciprocates effort. They keep giving attention to someone who only responds when convenient. They wait for consistency from people who repeatedly show emotional instability. Over time, this damages their confidence because every act of chasing reinforces the belief that they must earn basic attention and care. The relationship slowly becomes unequal, with one person emotionally investing while the other controls the dynamic through inconsistency and distance. Walking away is difficult because people become emotionally attached not only to who someone is, but also to the future they imagined with them. A man often holds on to potential instead of reality. He remembers the beginning, the chemistry, the moments of affection, and convinces himself that version of the relationship can return permanently if he just tries hard enough. But emotionally mature men understand that consistency matters more than occasional emotional highs. They judge relationships based on repeated behavior, not temporary moments of connection. If someone repeatedly makes you feel emotionally uncertain, unwanted, or emotionally exhausted, eventually you must stop asking how to keep them and start asking why you are willing to abandon your peace just to maintain access to them. There is a deep strength in knowing when to let go quietly, not through anger, revenge, emotional manipulation, or dramatic exits, but through calm acceptance. A confident man does not beg people to choose him. He does not force communication where effort is absent. He does not constantly explain his value to people who repeatedly fail to recognize it. Instead, he understands that self-respect sometimes requires distance. Walking away does not mean you never cared. It means you care about yourself enough to stop investing where emotional reciprocity no longer exists. Many people think staying and tolerating emotional pain proves loyalty, but true strength is often the ability to release what continuously damages your peace. Men who struggle to walk away usually believe losing the woman means losing the opportunity for happiness, connection, or love itself. This scarcity mindset keeps them emotionally trapped in situations far longer than necessary. But emotionally secure men understand that no single person defines their worth or future. They trust that mutual respect, effort, and emotional consistency are not impossible standards. They know healthy relationships do not require begging for clarity, attention, or basic communication. The moment a man fully understands his own value, he stops chasing spaces where he feels tolerated instead of genuinely appreciated. He no longer fears walking away from situations that continuously drain his confidence, emotional stability, and sense of self-respect,